Well, hello, friends. This is Pam, and it's Thursday, April 23rd, and welcome to the reading of the Record Courier. We begin today's reading with the area deaths. Larry Gene Montgomery, age 78, of Safety Harbor, Florida, went home to heaven on April 15th with his wife at his bedside. A celebration of life will be conducted in Ohio at a later date due to the coronavirus. Well, this concludes the reading of the Record Courier Thursday area death notices. Now, for our first article. Congressman updates Ravenna Council on federal funding by Diane Smith, reporter. Congressman Tim Ryan made an appearance at Ravenna City Council's virtual meeting on Monday, updating city officials on efforts to get federal funding to local governments and residents, especially those working frontline jobs. We need to prepare for this to take little time, he said. This is like the Great Depression happening in the course of a few weeks. Ryan said his fellow Democrats have written a bill that will provide funds to state and local governments, which he acknowledged are struggling to meet the expenses related to coronavirus, while income revenue is down because many taxpayers are not working. The Republicans in the Senate do not want to talk about state and local funding, he said. I keep saying they're going to cut police and fire in the middle of a global pandemic. What else are you guys going to cut? Ryan said he's also trying to help local nursing homes get personal protective equipment, connecting some of the area directly with suppliers. They're having a hard time getting PPE, he said, adding he wants President Donald Trump to take over the supply chain because right now all states are competing for the same equipment. And he said he is hoping for more funding to be released to struggling businesses. They're all in need, he said. Unless you're a grocery store or a fast food joint, you're done. Councilman Rob Karras asked if the House or Senate has any role in the move to reopen the government. Ryan said he's speaking out on the issue. While he acknowledged that people want to get back to their routines, Ryan says it needs to be done safely, with a push toward increased test availability. Who's going to go into a mall, he said. Who's going to go into a movie theater without large-scale testing? Ryan said he's pushing for increased stimulus payments to families struggling to pay bills and for hazard pay to people on the front lines, such as healthcare workers and grocery store employees, who he said are getting coughed on. Later, council members discussed some of the local responses to the pandemic. A line item was set up for city expenses related to coronavirus, and council's planning committee discussed a contract to offer at-home exercise classes through the city's park and recreation department. The annual Art on the Main festival, which had been planned for June, has been canceled. Mayor Frank Seaman said the city is facing increased costs for personal protective equipment for first responders, including protective gowns. They used to be $1, he said. Now it's $10, and that's if you can get them. A water line project on Lawrence Street on city's southeast side is postponed because of the pandemic, he said. Our next article is titled University Hospitals Suspends Operations at Freestanding Emergency Departments by staff reporter. University Hospitals is temporarily closing a number of its freestanding emergency departments, including ones in Kent and Twinsburg, effective 7 a.m. on Saturday. Other freestanding emergency departments also closing Sunday are ones in Avon, Amherst, and Broadview Heights. UH had previously suspended operations at freestanding emergency departments in Andover and Northridge. UH also closed the Urgent Care Center at Streetsboro Medical Center on April 11. According to UH Chief Operating Officer Eric Beck, DOMPH, a university hospital is committed to providing the safest, highest quality care for our patients in these communities during the COVID-19 pandemic and for all our patients' needs now and in the future. The health system is notifying and discussing the temporary suspension of services at these freestanding emergency departments with local, regional, state, and federal government officials. UH said it will continually evaluate patient volumes and preferences as a guide for the return of emergency department services. UH officials said the decision is based on a sharp decline in the number of patients visiting UH emergency departments system-wide as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Current patient volumes are down 50% at UH hospital-based emergency departments and more than 70% at UH freestanding emergency departments. UH officials noted patients are seeking care in different ways that include phone or online virtual care and urgent care. Other UH ambulatory services at these UH Health Center locations will continue to be open and available to patients. Emergency departments remain open at all UH hospitals. UH urgent care facilities in Broadview Heights, Kent, and Twinsburg will continue to serve health care needs in these communities. And on Monday, UH will open urgent cares in Amherst and Avon. Urgent cares offer patients a lower cost access point for many services than emergency departments. And these facilities can transition patients to UH hospitals when more acute care is needed. UH is partnered with first responders with 182 medical commands across the region to ensure that patients are transported to locations providing the appropriate level of care. Caregivers at these facilities will have options to move into positions at the new urgent cares and at other locations within the health system. We appreciate the flexibility and dedication of our caregivers in response to the COVID-19 pandemic, which has created unique demands for our healthcare services, Beck said. Health systems across the country have been impacted financially by the high costs associated with preparedness for a surge in COVID-19 patients and a reduction in revenues from the suspension of non-essential surgeries and procedures. Additionally, some patients have been reluctant during the pandemic to access care in traditional ways. In Ohio, it is estimated that hospitals are seeing financial losses of $42 million per day and spending $5 million per day on increased costs of supplies. Our next article is titled Portage County Missing from State's Lists of Coronavirus in Nursing Homes by Diane Smith, reporter. Portage County nursing homes were missing from the state's revised list of long-term care facilities with coronavirus cases. The list, which last week listed 2 facilities in Portage County, was placed back on the Ohio Department of Health's website Wednesday. This time, those facilities, Anna Maria in Aurora and Arbors of Streetsboro, along with others in the county, were missing from the state's list. Facilities from 18 of Ohio's 88 counties were listed, with a total of 558 resident cases and 223 deaths. The state says it does not list patients or staff who died prior to the report. Meanwhile, the county has 1 additional death, a person in their 70s. Portage County now stands at 31 deaths and 197 confirmed cases. An ODH spokeswoman said the department is in touch with Portage County officials and pledged to have the updated list posted as soon as current information is available. Melanie Amato, press secretary for the ODH, said the state's epidemiologist is in touch with Portage County to clarify the situation. She said it is possible that the Portage County Health District provided incomplete information or too much, because the state's list now includes cases that were active between April 15 and April 22. Becky Lehman, Public Information Officer for the Portage County Health District, said the district spoke with the ODH and said the reason the county's facilities weren't on the list is too much information was provided, which means the department included cases outside of the time period the ODH is looking at. The Record Courier has identified 9 people at the Woodlands Health and Rehabilitation Center who died in recent weeks, both at hospitals and at the facility. However, only 2 of those cases were during the time period Amato stated. A woman who died April 15, whose obituary listed coronavirus as her cause of death, and another who died Monday night, whose family said she died from the virus. Amato pledged to update the list as soon as the correct information is provided and said people won't have to wait until Wednesday when the report is typically updated. The state now plans to regularly update its list on Wednesdays, Amato said. Next week, the list will also include the number of people in Portage County who have died at long-term care facilities. The Ohio Department of Health said 67 people over the age of 80 have been diagnosed with coronavirus in Portage County, with 17 hospitalizations and 19 deaths. 36 in their 70s, 15 hospitalizations and 10 deaths. 24 in their 60s, with 6 hospitalizations and a death. 28 in their 50s, 7 hospitalized. 12 in their 40s, with 3 hospitalized and a death. 19 in their 30s, 2 hospitalized. 10 in their 20s, 2 hospitalized, and 1 under the age of 20. Our next article is titled, Ravenna Mayor, City Poised to Lose Nearly $1 million in Income Tax Revenue by Diane Smith. Ravenna Mayor Frank Seaman said the city is poised to lose nearly $1 million in income tax revenue because of the coronavirus outbreak. Seaman took part in a Facebook Live interview Wednesday hosted by the Ravenna Area Chamber of Commerce. He said the Regional Income Tax Authority estimates that Ravenna will lose $965,000 in income tax, something that the city is monitoring regularly. The city, he says, has a very good carryover and can absorb some of that and is controlling its spending. There is a hiring freeze except for essential employees. Firefighters, he said, are essential. We operate like we're still broke, he said. We don't buy it if we don't need it. He said he's looking to find ways to help the city's many small businesses, which he said are struggling. The small businesses in Ravenna to say that they are struggling is an understatement, he said. Most of them are stressed. Seaman said his daughter, a Ravenna resident who operates a veterinary clinic in Hartville, has had a hard time even finding a program she qualified for and still doesn't know the status of the application she submitted. The first round of funding, she said, only applied to large companies and not small businesses. Another problem, Seaman said, is that banks have closed their doors during the pandemic and give priority to their current customers. He says he wants to start a new program to help local businesses, extending loans to businesses through the city's revolving loan fund. The revolving loan fund is state funded, and when businesses repay their loan, the money goes back into the fund to help other businesses. Seaman said in order to make those loans, the city needs permission from the state, which usually only funds businesses that are expanding. Most businesses, he said, aren't in a position to make those promises, he said. There are people who are truly hanging on by a thread who have been loyal to the town and opened a business here, he said. We need to find a way to help them. Ryan Kirchenbecker, executive director of the chamber, said many businesses are frustrated. He said he is concerned for downtown businesses. The city's theater, which drew other businesses to Ravenna, is sitting empty, and businesses are now on the ropes. He encouraged people to contribute to the Center of Hope if they can, and also encouraged residents to fill out their census forms. He said he is concerned that as the pandemic is taking longer, there may be some people will be upset, and it could turn a little ugly. Please don't be a part of the ugliness, he said. We're all dealing with this. Kuchenbecker also encouraged people to be patient, even though she knows that many people are frustrated. This is out of our control, she said. Our next article is titled, Longcoy Roofing Project Progresses in Kent. The Kent Board of Education has chosen Canton-based Teamcraft Roofing to fix 2 portions of Longcoy Elementary's roof. The $197,000 project will address the sections of the roof along the north and south corridor on the west end of the building. The project is not connected to the district's proposed bond issue. Superintendent George Joseph said that they are considering starting at the end of May or early June, but work could start earlier pending contractor availability because students are not in the building. The district previously worked with Teamcraft to replace a section of the high school and improve the middle school roof in 2017. Kent Schools Donate this is our next article. Kent Schools Donate and Create PPE by Krista S. Cano, reporter. The Kent School District is contributing in the effort to fight the coronavirus and stop its spread. On Tuesday, the Board of Education retroactively approved the donation of about 195 respirator masks to the Kent Health Department, as well as head coverings, gowns, touch-free thermometers, and gloves to Summa Health Coleman professionals. The items were collected from the district's health clinics that located in every school, as well as from the career technical education programs at Theodore Roosevelt High School. Superintendent George Joseph said that after making the donation, the district found an additional supply of surgical masks that they will likely hold on to in order to keep a district supply for when schools reopen. Additionally, the Computer-Aided Design and Engineering Technology program is currently using 3D printers to manufacture ear savers, which take the pressure off of ears when wearing surgical masks for long periods of time. Cadet is a 6-district compact career technical education program that is housed at Roosevelt. Cadet instructor Jeff B. and Troy Spear borrowed the 3D printer from Roosevelt's Engineering and Advanced Manufacturing Lab and are printing the ear savers at home to then donate to hospital personnel in Akron and Canton and to local fire and police departments. Some cadet students, including Tim Frankish and Cole Steiner, both of Cuyahoga Falls, are using their own 3D printers to create ear savers. Our next article, titled Windham Schools to Save Money on Trash Services. The Windham School District recently renegotiated its contract with Waste Management to reduce trash pickup days to once a week. Superintendent Ariane Curtis explained that without students in the building, the district is producing less trash and did not need daily services. The new contract will save the district about $1,500 a month. Our next article is titled Man Who Struck, Killed Motorcyclist, Released Early from Prison by Eileen McClory, reporter. A 58-year-old Suffield Township man was released early from prison on Tuesday after serving about a quarter of his sentence of 2 years in prison. Michael P. Doherty of 1425 Kristen Circle was released from the Ohio State Penitentiary on Tuesday after serving about 6 months of his 2-year sentence. His attorney Don Malarsic said Doherty became eligible for parole early in April after serving 180 days in prison. Marisick said he was concerned about Doherty, who is 58, being in prison during the COVID-19 pandemic because of his age and how fast the virus is spreading in Ohio prisons, and included that in his argument. He also noted that Doherty has a family to return to and has taken advantage of programs in prison to better himself. Retired Cuyahoga County Judge Thomas Pokorny granted the judicial release. He ordered Doherty to self-quarantine in his home for 14 days following his release from prison. Doherty was serving his sentence in the Ohio State Penitentiary, where a guard has tested positive for COVID-19, according to the Ohio Department of Corrections. Doherty attended the hearing via video. Pokorny, the victim's family, and Malarsic were in the courtroom. Doherty was also ordered to obtain a COVID-19 test, and if it is positive, he has to quarantine himself for 21 days. He will also be on probation for about 3 years after getting out and will not be allowed to consume alcohol or drugs. Pokorny was assigned the case after Portage County Common Pleas Judge Becky Doherty and Lori Pittman recused themselves, as Michael Doherty is Judge Doherty's ex-husband, according to a filing in the case. The judge and Michael Doherty divorced in 2011, according to court records. On May 23, 2018, Doherty struck 46-year-old Douglas T. Sheed while Sheed was riding his Harley-Davidson past the Windmill Lakes Golf Course, according to the Ohio State Highway Patrol and court records. The patrol said Sheed was heading northwest when Doherty's Chrysler 300C attempted to turn left out of the Windmill Lakes Drive. Sheed was ejected from his motorcycle. He died June 2, 2018, from injuries in the crash. Doherty was allegedly driving drunk during the incident, but the evidence for that was not allowed in court. Pokorny ordered a state trooper's field sobriety evidence suppressed due to questions about the breath test machine. The state appealed the ruling, but the appeals court sent the case back to the trial court because a plea agreement was reached. Our next article is titled Field Teacher Comes Out of Maternity Leave to Help Students by Kristen Cano. Reporter. When her first child was born in November, Field Middle School Intervention Specialist Jill Kletlinger went on maternity leave and after 12 weeks decided she wanted a little more time with baby Olivia. Then this crazy coronavirus happened and they called and asked me to come back. I just can't imagine what the kiddos were going through and how it would have been with a substitute. I just thought it would be best to come back and give them the support they needed during this insane time, Kletlinger said. Superintendent David Heflinger said Kletlinger's return is just one example of Field teachers' dedication to their students. She's a great teacher, very caring. She really gets to know her kids on a personal level. She's super dedicated to her profession and builds wonderful relationships with the kids and works well with colleagues. She's a blessing to have in the district, and I'm not surprised she came back, Special Services Director Megan Longfellow said. Longfellow explained that in November, Kletlinger's 15 students started working with a long-term substitute teacher who left for a permanent position. A second long-term substitute was hired but had only been working with the students for a few days when Ohio Governor Mike DeWine announced that all K-12 schools would be required to close March 16th. So this gentleman was great but had only been there a couple of days, so he never got an opportunity to get to know the kids. I called Jill and she said she'd come back right away. She knows the students so well and knows their individual needs, which is so important, especially with online instruction, Longfellow said. Kletlinger was ready to start online teaching with the rest of the district on March 23rd and picked up right where she left off with her 15 middle school students. Like many other teachers, Kletlinger is learning how to online teach for the first time. She's also finding a rhythm in motherhood. Luckily, Olivia takes some long naps, so I'm able to video chat with students to talk about their problems and any confusion they're having. I also make recordings and share them with students about how to do math problems or use context clues. She doesn't appear in the videos too often, but she's learned to use her voice, so sometimes she wants to see how loud she can get, Kletlinger said. She said that it took her that first week to figure out how to balance her time, but has found her routine. The transition has been fairly easy for me, probably easier than it has been for the students. I can't imagine for them being ripped out of their routine and being stuck at home. I hope that feeling of overwhelmingness went away and that it's been easier. Kletlinger holds an intervention specialist master's degree and finished an additional licensure, Teach for the Visually Impaired, while she was pregnant. Our next article, titled University Hospitals Cut Pay for Some Employees Not Directly Dealing with COVID-19. University hospitals announced Wednesday that it will cut pay for some employees not directly involved with patient care. About 4,100 people who work at the hospital will see reduced hours and 20% pay cuts for an initial 10-week period. Those affected by the cost reductions include executives, directors, non-clinical managers, department chairs, and division chiefs who will have their pay reduced while continuing to work their regular schedules according to the hospital. Caregivers affected are salaried and hourly non-clinical staff throughout the health system. Exempt salary caregivers will take 1 week off every 5th week. Non-exempt hourly caregivers will work 20% fewer hours per week. The hospital said the decision followed an assessment of financial models, capital expenditures, and other costs, and said estimates from the Ohio Hospital Association showed hospitals are seeing financial losses of $42 million per day and spending $5 million per day on increased costs of supplies. Although UH said it is asking for resources available through FEMA and the CARES Act, any recoveries from those programs alone will not come near making up the financial losses from the pandemic, according to UH CEO Thomas F. Zentley III. Employees affected by the pay cuts who are currently full-time and moving to reduced hours and pay will maintain eligibility for full-time benefits. Employees may use accumulative paid time off and sick leave banks to continue pay for days not worked. If employees need to take time off, they can use their paid time off or choose to have that time unpaid. UH said matching contributions to 403B and 401K plans are also suspended temporarily beginning the first pay in May, and planned merit pay adjustments are delayed until the end of the calendar year. Why don't we take a moment and talk about the Portage County Crime Reports? Crime reports are a sampling of incidences responded to by local enforcement agencies. They are not intended to be all-inclusive. In Deerfield, a 22-year-old Deerfield man was charged with domestic violence, a first-degree misdemeanor, after an incident on Saturday on Deerfield Drive. A temporary protection order was issued and a hearing was scheduled. In Franklin Township, a 44-year-old Ravenna Township woman was charged with operating a food business without a license, a third-degree misdemeanor, after an incident on April 8th. A hearing was scheduled. In Garrettsville, a 63-year-old Garrettsville man was charged with operating a food business without a license, a third-degree misdemeanor, after an incident on April 8th. A hearing was scheduled. And in Kent, a 27-year-old Ravenna Township woman was charged with possession of drug abuse instruments, a second-degree misdemeanor, after an incident on Friday. A summons was issued. In Ravenna, a 19-year-old Ravenna Township woman was charged with disorderly conduct, a minor misdemeanor, after an incident on Monday. She faces a fine of $68 plus court costs. A court date was scheduled. A 52-year-old Ravenna man was charged with, it didn't say what he was charged with. I'm so sorry. And that's what we get. Well, my dear friends, I'm so sorry about that. My article ended with no additional information. But, sadly, this concludes the reading of the Record Courier for Wednesday, April 22nd, 2020. This is Pam saying you please keep yourself safe, be blessed, and you make it a great day.